Guys, Kev here. So, today's the day, November 4th, huh? And look what's happening. Surprise, surprise, Antifa hasn't showed up. I mean, the Refuse Fascism people are there, and they call themselves anti-fascists, but the people who we like to call Antifa, these violent anarchists who want to go out and cause trouble and slander everybody they disagree with, those people didn't put their money where their mouth is. What are these other people going to do? They're out there. These people, this Refuse Fascism organization, they spent millions of dollars advertising, setting up all these protests in all these different cities. And who shows up? A bunch of purse puppy token minorities that are the usual suspects in these things, like Linda Sarsour, hypocritical people like that who advocate for extreme patriarchal Islam while calling themselves feminists. Those jokers showed up. And then you have a bunch of old hippies. Most of those people, they won't make it past the night. I mean, half of them are already falling out because they haven't had their insulin or their daily Metamucil. Once they get all clogged up, what are they going to do? They're not going to do anything. This is the same thing we saw with that impeach Trump march. When it was time for Antifa to put up, they didn't show up. Not the people that we've seen out there at Berkeley trying to beat people up. And it just shows you, those people, let's face it, a lot of them were paid. A lot of them were local gangsters who just wanted to go out and get in fights where they knew they couldn't get in trouble and act like thugs. That's what a lot of those were. The rest of them were virtue signalers. And see, that's the thing. When they didn't have their so-called Nazis to show up, and they have no boogeyman to fight with, they don't show up. They don't care about politics. Most of them don't vote. Half of them don't know what the difference between socialism and fascism is. They really don't. That recent poll I read the other day said 50% of millennials think that communism is better than capitalism, even though they've benefited from capitalism every way possible. Meanwhile, that same 50%, 80% of them couldn't even define communism, socialism, or fascism. So I brought those definitions here today. I'm going to read them for you because they seem to think that fascism is worse than communism. And as bad as fascism is, it's still not worse than communism. Not when you talk about death toll or successive nations. So anyway, socialism, economic theory of social organization that advocates state ownership of private property, a transitional social state between the overthrow of capitalism and the realization of communism. See, guys, socialism isn't roads, it's not schools, it's not charity. You know, socialism is theft by authoritarian government, and it's always authoritarian because you have to have authoritarianism to steal property and to force people to give up their wages. It's theft by authoritarian government to redistribute wealth to the people who don't deserve it, and most of that wealth ends up going to the political class. That's why these elites love to push socialism. They know that they want Fabian-style socialism with the technocracy where they can control everybody else and everybody else is state-dependent. So they push that. Anyway, communism. Because, see, here's the thing. Communists are just socialists in a hurry. As you heard in the definition of socialism from Merriam-Webster, it is the transition between the overthrow of capitalism and communism. So communism, a theory derived from Karl Marx that advocates class war because that's important. It's all about conflict. It's based in conflict theory. So you have class war leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person is paid according to their needs. Now, according to your needs doesn't mean that you're going to get enough money to go out and buy an iPhone or hang out at Starbucks all day. No, you will be forced to work all day and you will not be paid much. Cuba, the average person in Cuba gets paid $18 a day. And all the socialized medicine in the world, even though it's really crappy in Cuba, and that's a big misconception, but it's horrible. My wife can tell you all about that. All the socialized medicine in the world and all the free crap, welfare, is not worth $18 a day of pay. That means your leisure money is zero. You have none. In fact, sugar is a very sought after commodity on that island that people don't have access to, and sugar is the #1 crop grown on that island. So an island that grows sugar, people can't even get access to sugar. All right, So that's communism. And don't forget, communism's killed hundreds of millions of people. It's enslaved billions worldwide. Just look at China. That's 1 billion people right there enslaved by communism. A political philosophy, this is fascism, sorry. A political philosophy that exalts nation and ethnicity above the individual. Individual. That sounds like libertarianism, doesn't it? To promote the individual. So the opposite of that, fascism, that sounds a lot more like something on the left, doesn't it? The collective above the individual. A political philosophy that exalts the nation and ethnicity above the individual and has a centralized autocratic government with a severe economic and social regimentation. Economic and social regimentation. Cultural Marxism, planned economies. That sounds a lot like Democrat policies, doesn't it? Especially under Obama. Promoting companies like Monsanto, passing protections for them, passing the TPP. That was all Obama. So, you know, sounds like fascism's more in line with what today's left is all about, doesn't it? You take away the nationalism stuff and fascism's just like what we see right now from the left. So, you know, and I'm a nationalist. I'm okay with nationalism, but I'm a capitalist. And most Republicans are just capitalists. So I'll go ahead and read you a definition of that too. A system of economics where the means of production are privately owned and people enter into contracts voluntarily. Voluntarily entering into contracts. Being able to have advocacy and choice. That's capitalism. Republicanism, I'll talk about that too. Republicanism is the idea that cities and towns can do government better than a centralized planned economy or a centralized authoritarian state. So decentralization, cities competing against other cities for the best schools, that's republicanism. That's what you guys are calling fascism. You're calling people like me a Nazi, even though my own family is not white. You know, my own family's mixed race. They're nationalists too, though. My wife's an immigrant, but she loves this country. Our kids grow up in this country. And so, yes, we're protectionists when it comes to letting in people who would do this country harm. Anyway, you know, you didn't show up out there. You probably won't show up. This thing's supposed to go on for several days. They're going to try to grow these protests. And like I said, if they do try to start something, if they get out of hand, if at some point these anarchists show up and try to get violent, we're going to shut you down. Believe that. People are sick of you. But this just shows once again that the left way overplayed their hand. They think they're so much bigger and so much more powerful than they actually are. And even though the media is out there cheering these protesters on right now, we'll see. Once they bring in, if these violent people do come out, the media will disown you too. And that'll be another victory for us. And you know what? You can join us, guys. You can wake up to this. You can go out and start reading those definitions and learning. Go read Rothbard. Go read Marx. Go read Marx. Most of you haven't read Marx. If you did, you wouldn't be communists. You'd be like, what the hell's this shit? Why would I ever want to buy into this? Or go visit a communist country. Spend a few weeks there. Go visit a Muslim country and go spend a few weeks there. Then come back here and see if you have the nerve to go protest this country. Because you won't. Anyway, I'll be back around later. Red pill out.